We had just moved into the neighborhood 3 weeks ago. Quiet. Secluded. Lined with trees older than most of the houses. It was the kind of place my wife Anna and I dreamed about back when we were still living in that cramped downtown apartment above the grocery store where trucks beeped at 5 a.m. every morning. Here we had deer in the yard and stars at night. We thought we had made it. But we were wrong. The morning everything began felt like any other. The sun came up slow behind the hills. I was in the kitchen making scrambled eggs and toast while Anna read on the porch swing. That swing had been her birthday gift to herself. A white oak seat with thick ropes hanging from the beams. She loved that thing more than the house itself. It was peaceful. It was ours. Until a voice broke the quiet like a shovel through glass. "Excuse me," I said. "Excuse me, is this your property?" It was a woman. Early 50s maybe. Short red haircut like she cut it herself. Tan pantsuit that didn't quite match the sneakers she had on. She stood with one hand on her hip, the other waving a clipboard like a baton. Anna looked up from her book a little startled. "Yes, this is our home. Can I help you?" "You sure can," the woman said with a forced smile, and I knew then this wasn't going to be a friendly chat. I came out of the kitchen and stepped onto the porch. She barely acknowledged me. "My name is Karen. I'm the president of the HOA and we've been trying to get in touch with you," she said. "You didn't attend the mandatory welcome meeting last Saturday." Anna looked confused. "I'm sorry, we never got any notice about that." Karen scoffed. "Well, it's in the welcome packet we hand-delivered the day you moved in. All new residents are expected to read and comply with our neighborhood covenant and bylaws. That includes registering your vehicle colors, lawn height, and of course joining the HOA officially. The dues are only $300 a month." I felt my jaw tighten. $300 a month for what exactly, I asked. Karen ignored me again. This time she stepped closer to Anna like I wasn't even there. "Now the HOA isn't optional," she said sweetly. "Not here. Not in Sycamore Trails. We maintain the beauty and security of the neighborhood and we need all members to be compliant. We've already documented 3 violations on your part." Anna blinked. "Violations?" "Yes," Karen said. "The porch swing was installed without HOA approval. Your mailbox is the wrong shade of gray. And you left your trash bin out past 8 a.m. on Monday. We run a tight ship around here." Anna and I looked at each other. We both wanted to laugh. Was this a joke? "I'm sorry, but we didn't agree to any of this when we bought the house," I said calmly. "We purchased directly from the seller and our lawyer never mentioned an active HOA." "Well, then you should get a better lawyer," Karen said, smiling again but with no humor. "You'll find the HOA clause in the deed under Section 6. Paragraph 12. Line 4. Membership is automatic with ownership. I suggest you sign the paperwork and pay your dues today. Otherwise we'll have no choice but to escalate the matter." Anna stood up now. "Escalate how?" Karen didn't flinch. "Well, we start with fines. Then formal complaints. Then liens. Then court. And we involve law enforcement when necessary. We've dealt with stubborn residents before." That last part hung in the air a bit too long. She wanted us to know she had power. She wanted us afraid. But Anna didn't blink. "We'll look into it," she said coolly. "For now, please leave our property." Karen's smile vanished. "I'll be back," she said and turned around like she was some villain in a bad soap opera. We watched her walk down the driveway scribbling something on her clipboard. The rest of the day was a blur. I called the title lawyer who handled our sale. He was baffled. Said there was no official HOA listed in the county registry and nothing binding in the deed that would require dues or enforce community rules. He told us to ignore her unless she filed something formal. Anna, though, was unsettled. "I don't like it," she said that night as we sat on the porch. "She's too confident. She acts like she owns the whole street. Maybe she's just one of those neighborhood busybodies," I offered. "They exist everywhere. Maybe if we ignore her she'll get bored." But ignoring Karen turned out to be the worst idea we could have had. The next morning we woke to find a note taped to our door in bright red ink. "Final notice, join the HOA or face enforcement action." Underneath it was a list of new violations, including one that simply said "too many birds." "Too many birds," I read out loud. "What does that even mean?" Anna shook her head. "This is harassment." I agreed. We decided to install a few cameras around the house just in case. Something about Karen felt off. Like she wasn't just doing this for rules or order. Like she enjoyed it. Got high off power. For the next few days things escalated fast. We found garbage dumped on our lawn with a sticky note that said "clean up your ACT." Someone spray-painted "join or leave" on our back fence. One morning we came out to find our tires slashed. We called the police then. Officer Ramirez took the report and seemed sympathetic at first. But when we mentioned Karen and the HOA, something in his posture changed. "Oh, Karen, yeah," he said with a sigh. "She's persistent. But technically if she's running an HOA and you're refusing to join you might be violating the agreement. There is no agreement, I said, showing him the paperwork. He glanced at it, nodded but didn't take a copy. Well, this is more of a civil matter than criminal, he said. You should probably handle it with a lawyer. Unless you catch someone in the act there's not much we can do. So we were on our own. But Anna had a plan. She spent the next 3 days researching, calling the county, looking through public records, digging through archives like she was hunting for treasure. I didn't know what she was doing at first. But every night she came to bed with that look in her eye, the one that said she was close. Then one evening she walked into the living room holding a thick folder. I got her, she said. Got who? Karen, she said, smiling like a chess master. The HOA isn't real. Not legally. It was dissolved 8 years ago. The last president died and nobody ever filed to reinstate it. Karen's been acting like it still exists, but there's no record, no tax filings, no official charter. Nothing. Are you serious? Dead serious, she said. And better yet, I found something else. Karen was fined for impersonating a public official 3 years ago. She pretended to be a code enforcer to shut down someone's garage sale. So what do, I asked. Anna's smile grew. We fight back. But not how she expects. The next morning Karen returned like clockwork. This time she brought 2 men with her. Both wore matching shirts that said security in big block letters. They stood at the edge of our lawn, arms crossed like bouncers at a nightclub. Karen marched up the driveway holding a thick stack of papers. This is your last chance, she barked. Join or face the consequences. Anna stepped forward before I could say a word. She was calm, graceful. But there was steel in her voice. Karen, she said loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. This HOA you're running. It doesn't exist. It was dissolved 8 years ago and you never refiled. You have no legal authority over us or anyone else here. Karen's face went red. That's a lie. Anna held up the folder. These are county records. Want me to show them to you? One of the security guys looked nervous. And that's not all, Anna continued. I also have documentation that you impersonated a public official in 2022. I have the court record. If you don't leave our property right now, I'll report you for harassment, trespassing, and impersonation again. And this time I'll make sure the DA sees everything. Karen's mouth opened but no words came out. And just then a sheriff's car rolled up. We hadn't called them. Not this time. It was Officer Ramirez again. He stepped out slow and looked at the scene. Ma'am, he said to Karen. We had a complaint about unauthorized private security on residential property. These men need to leave immediately. And so do you. Karen started to protest, but the officer raised his hand. Enough, he said. We're investigating multiple reports about you. It's time to stop whatever it is you're doing here. The 2 security guys backed away fast. Karen stood frozen for a moment, then turned on her heel and walked back to her car. Ramirez watched her go, then turned to Anna. Ma'am, we'll be in touch. And for what it's worth, you handled that better than most people ever could. Then something unexpected happened. He saluted her. Anna didn't flinch. She nodded once, then turned back to me and whispered. I told you I got her after that morning when Officer Ramirez showed up and shut Karen down. Things went quiet for a few days, too quiet, the kind of quiet where you know something's brewing under the surface, like the silence before a storm. Anna and I kept to ourselves. Mostly we took walks around the neighborhood just trying to feel normal again, but we could feel it in the air, eyes behind curtains, footsteps that paused when we stepped outside, lawnmowers that stopped mid-cut like everyone was watching, waiting, wondering. Then on Friday just after sunset someone knocked on the door. It wasn't Karen this time. It was an older man, tall, thin, with kind eyes. He held a folded lawn chair under one arm and a plate of brownies in the other. Evening, he said with a nod. Name's Frank. I live 2 streets over. Wanted to say hi and also to say thank you. Anna raised an eyebrow. Thank you for standing up to her, Frank said with a slight grin. Been waiting a long time for someone to do it. You mean Karen? Yeah, he said, stepping onto the porch. I moved here 16 years ago, before all this HOA nonsense started. She just kind of showed up one day with clipboards and rules, and most folks didn't question it. We just thought, okay, maybe she's official. But she's not, I said, not even close. Frank laughed. I figured as much when she tried to fine me for having a yellow birdhouse. Apparently it violated the visual consistency of the street, whatever that means. He sat down in the chair like he belonged there. Anna handed him a glass of iced tea and we talked for almost an hour. He told us stories about Karen's antics, like the time she tried to ban Halloween decorations or when she threatened to report someone's 9-year-old for selling lemonade without a license. You'd think she was running a prison, not a neighborhood, he said. We laughed, but part of me felt a little sad, not for Karen but for the people who had lived under her shadow for so long. How had no one fought back until now? That night Frank told us we'd made an impression not just on him but on the whole street. People were talking, he said, and not in the whispery gossip way but in the maybe it's time for change kind of way. Over the next few days, neighbors started stopping by, people we hadn't even met yet. They brought pies, cookies, old stories about Karen, some funny, some disturbing, like how she once called the fire department because someone had a bonfire in a decorative pit, or how she fined a widow for not trimming her rose bushes during her husband's funeral week. One woman, Miss Linda, she lived alone near the cul-de-sac, told us Karen had once demanded she remove the wind chimes on her porch because the sound was disruptive. "I just told her to go disrupt herself," Linda said, and we all cracked up. Anna took notes during these visits. She was building something, I could tell, collecting details, dates, witnesses, patterns. I asked her one night what she was up to. "Just getting ready," she said softly. "This isn't over." And she was right. The quiet didn't last. Exactly 1 week after the standoff with Karen, Anna received a letter in the mail typed single-spaced on fake legal letterhead. It said we were in gross violation of community standards, and were being referred to the Neighborhood Arbitration Council, which as far as we could tell didn't exist. The letter accused us of causing community unrest, spreading misinformation, and conducting unauthorized investigations. It ended with a bolded demand to cease and desist all anti-HOA rhetoric or face legal consequences. Anna laughed out loud when she read it. "She's desperate," I said. "She's scared," Anna replied, "and that's good." We made a few more calls to the county office. Turns out Karen had tried and failed to file new HOA paperwork. Just days earlier it was rejected due to incomplete documentation and no resident vote. The clerk even gave Anna a copy of the attempt. Anna now had a full binder, a timeline, a list of witnesses, and official documents. It looked like something a lawyer would take to court, and maybe she was about to. Because the next morning 2 sheriff's deputies showed up at our house. Not Officer Ramirez, 2 new faces, one tall and stiff, one short and wide, both serious. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. The tall one said, "We received a complaint regarding harassment of a community leader. We're here to follow up on that." Anna blinked. "Do you mean Karen?" They nodded and asked to come inside. We let them in, sat at the kitchen table, offered coffee. They declined. Anna opened the binder. "I want you to see something," she said, and started flipping pages. She showed them the original deed, the non-existence of an HOA, the list of false claims, the phony legal threats, the impersonation charge from 2022, the failed attempt to file HOA documents last week. They were quiet through most of it, taking notes, glancing at each other. When she finished, she slid the binder across the table and said, "If this is harassment, then I'm guilty of protecting myself from a fraud who's been terrorizing this neighborhood for nearly a decade." The short deputy looked at the tall one, then looked at Anna. "Ma'am, I think we've got all we need," he said. "We're going to speak with her directly, and if anything else happens, you let us know immediately." They left without taking the binder, but with the tone of people who'd seen too much to ignore. That afternoon Frank came by again, this time with a group behind him, 5 neighbors, some young, some old, all with stories to tell. "We've had enough," Frank said. "It's time we take our street back." They weren't just talking, they had a plan. One guy named Luis worked in graphic design. He offered to make flyers. Another woman, Keisha, ran a local Facebook group. She said she'd post updates. Linda, the wind chime lady, volunteered her front yard for meetings. It felt like the beginning of something real, like a movement. Anna smiled at me that night as we sat on the porch swing. "They're ready," she said. "We just had to show them they could fight back." But Karen wasn't done yet. That weekend a huge banner appeared at the front of the neighborhood entrance, hanging from the welcome sign. It said, "Real residents respect the HOA, don't be a troublemaker." Someone spray-painted "Traitor" across our mailbox again, and one morning we found dozens of little flags stuck into our yard, all labeled "violation" in red marker. It was petty and ridiculous, but also chilling, because she wasn't giving up, and now she was trying to turn the neighborhood against us. Anna didn't flinch. She called a town hall. Using Keisha's Facebook group and Luis's flyers, they invited every resident to a meeting at Linda's yard. Chairs were set up, snacks were brought, kids played nearby, and for the first time in years people talked openly about what Karen had been doing. Frank stood up first, told his story. Then Keisha. Then Luis. Then Miss Linda. Then more and more. It was like breaking a dam. Suddenly people were pouring out everything: years of fines, threats, passive aggression, paranoia. One man even said Karen tried to evict his dog for barking too loud. After nearly an hour, Anna stood in the center, binder in hand, and laid it all out: the fake HOA, the phony rules, the intimidation tactics, the violations of privacy and trust. "We can't stop her alone," she said, "but together we can end this." They cheered. They clapped. They volunteered. A vote was held right there, informal but powerful. Every hand went up except one, Karen's friend Doug, who left in a huff and peeled out of the driveway like a teenager. But something even more surprising happened the next day. Karen vanished. No visits, no notes, no threats, no signs. Just gone. Until a week later. That's when the real surprise came. We received a certified letter from the county clerk's office. Inside was a notice. Karen Wilkins was under investigation for fraud, impersonation, and unlawful use of authority. Multiple residents had filed complaints, and the sheriff's department had opened a formal case. Attached was a note from Officer Ramirez, hand signed. "Thanks for bringing truth back to this neighborhood." Anna sat still for a long time reading it, then rereading it. "We did it," she said softly. But something in her voice told me she wasn't done, not yet. And I was right. Because just when we thought it was over, something happened that neither of us saw coming. The local news showed up. We never wanted attention. We just wanted peace. A quiet yard, a safe place to walk barefoot in the grass without looking over our shoulders or checking for surveillance cameras hidden behind someone's rose bushes. But when the news van rolled into our cul-de-sac early that Tuesday morning, peace was the last thing on anyone's mind. I was watering the front hedges, trying to ignore the handful of little red flags still left from Karen's yard stunt, when I heard the sound of tires and equipment cases thumping against metal. I turned, and there it was. Local Channel 9 News parked across the street. Two women stepped out, one with a camera and another holding a mic and a clipboard. The reporter looked young, sharp, and already halfway into her story. "Voice. Are you Mr. Taylor?" she asked briskly before I could even say good morning. "That depends," I said cautiously. She smiled. "My name's Valerie Liu. I'm a journalist. We received several tips about a dispute involving a fraudulent homeowners association and some pretty wild neighborhood drama." "I don't do interviews," I said automatically. But Anna stepped outside behind me and said clearly, "I do." They set up on the porch, the swing behind Anna gently swaying with the breeze. She didn't sit, she stood tall, binder in hand, the same binder that had become her weapon of choice in this war of nerves. Valerie asked her questions about the HOA, about Karen, about the threats, the false documents, the community vote. Anna answered each one clearly, calmly. She didn't dramatize anything, she just told the truth. I watched through the window, amazed again by how composed she was, how measured, how sure. She didn't flinch even when Valerie asked, "Why do you think no one stood up to her before now?" Anna paused a beat before answering. "Because fear works," she said. "Because when someone acts like they have power, most people assume it's true, and when you're alone you start to think maybe it's just easier to go along." Then she looked right into the camera and said, "But the moment you realize you're not alone is the moment the fear breaks, and that's when people stand up." That line must have hit something deep, because within 24 hours the clip went viral. Not just local news, but state sites picked it up, then bigger blogs, then forums, then it spread like wildfire. HOA tyrant exposed. Neighborhood hero stands up to fake authority. Wife outsmarts self-appointed HOA queen. The headlines kept coming. People started messaging Anna online from other towns, other states, even some from Canada and the UK, all with stories of HOAs gone rogue, of board members who used fear instead of fairness. It was surreal. We went from hiding cameras around our house to being the face of a conversation no one seemed to realize needed to happen. And then came the next twist. 3 days after the news aired, Anna got a phone call. The number was unfamiliar but local. "Hello," she answered calmly. "Hello, is this Mrs. Taylor?" The voice on the other end was formal male. "This is Paul Denslow. I'm with the county commissioner's office. I'd like to meet with you." Anna met him the next morning at a quiet diner on the edge of town. I waited in the car, not because she needed protection but because I was curious. They sat in a booth near the window, talked for almost an hour. I watched through the windshield as he leaned forward, more and more, nodding, taking notes like a student at a master class. When she came back to the car, she looked thoughtful, not shaken, not triumphant, just processing. Well, I said, "What was that about?" "He wants my help," she said, "not with Karen but with policy. He wants to create new rules for how HOAs are allowed to operate in the county," he said. Our story opened his eyes. I blinked. "That's huge." "It's something," she said softly. That weekend the town hall held a public hearing. They opened the mic for anyone who wanted to speak about local housing issues, and Anna signed up third. Frank came too, so did Keisha and Luis, and even Miss Linda wore a t-shirt that said HOAs Ain't It, with a cartoon of a mailbox kicking back on a lawn chair. Anna didn't speak long, just enough to explain what happened, what she learned, what the flaws in the system were, and how many people were still suffering in silence. When she finished, the room clapped, not politely but loudly, like they were grateful, like someone had finally said what they couldn't. After that meeting, things started changing. The county posted a draft of proposed reforms for how homeowners associations could form, what oversight they needed, and how residents could challenge abuses of power. It wasn't just a win, it was a movement. But just when we thought Karen was done for, she made her biggest move yet. It started with a letter again, but not typed this time, handwritten in loopy, careful cursive with no return address. Said, "I never wanted to hurt anyone, I only wanted order. This neighborhood is my home and you've destroyed it." Anna read it twice, folded it, then slid it back into the envelope. "She's unraveling," I said. "She's cornered," Anna replied, "and people who feel cornered do reckless things." And she was right again. Because that night someone cut the power to our house. Just before midnight the lights blinked out, the fridge groaned, and the cameras went dark. We were ready for that, though. We had backups, battery-pack solar motion lights, but it still left a pit in my stomach. Anna checked the front yard through the blinds, nothing but shadows. We waited. And then we saw it. A figure moving near the side gate, slow, deliberate, tall, with something in their hands. Anna grabbed her phone. I moved toward the back door, but she stopped me. "Don't," she whispered, "let the police handle it." She called Officer Ramirez directly this time, and he picked up fast. Within 10 minutes 2 cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. The figure was still near the gate, fumbling with something. The officers shouted, "Freeze." It wasn't Karen. It was Doug, her friend, the one neighbor who voted against us. They arrested him on the spot: possession of burglary tools, trespassing, tampering with electrical utilities. He said nothing. But the next morning his wife came to our door in tears. "I'm so sorry," she said. "He got caught up in it. He thought he was helping her, but it went too far. I just wanted to say thank you for not pressing more charges." We didn't say anything, just nodded. Sometimes silence is the kindest answer. Karen still hadn't been seen since the investigation began. People wondered if she had left town, gone to stay with family, vanished altogether. But then 2 weeks later the sheriff's office made an announcement. She had been officially charged with multiple counts, including impersonation of authority, filing false legal claims, and stalking. It was over. Really over. The street felt different now, lighter, louder. Kids played outside again. Neighbors chatted over fences. Decorations went up early and often. People smiled more, waved more. And then something strange happened. Anna got a job offer. Someone from a neighboring county had seen the news, followed the town hall, and read the new policy draft. They were forming a resident advisory board for housing justice, and they wanted Anna to chair it. She didn't say yes right away. She paced the porch swing for hours, thinking it over. Finally she said, "I never wanted to be in charge of anything, but maybe it's time someone kind was." I smiled and said, "You'd make a hell of a chairwoman." She laughed, but the next morning she called them back and said yes. And that's when our neighborhood really started to change. But not because of a law. Not because of a title. Because one woman stood on her porch one morning and said no. And because everyone else realized they could too. By the time Anna accepted the role as chair of the advisory board, the buzz around the neighborhood had finally settled, but the peace didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the start of something new, like we had all woken up from a long sleep and realized we actually had control over our own front yards and maybe our lives too. But peace wasn't what Anna wanted next. Closure was. She kept reading everything she could about HOA law, about resident rights, about the structures that made people like Karen possible. She wasn't angry anymore, she was curious. And then she did something that surprised me. She asked to visit Karen. Why, I asked, not accusing, just stunned. "Because I want to know," she said calmly. "I want to know why she did it all." "You think she'll talk?" Anna didn't answer, but I knew she would try. She contacted the sheriff's office first and asked if Karen was being held. They said no, she had made bail but had been ordered to remain within the county pending trial. No harassment, no contact, no public claims of authority. Anna asked if she could send a message through the station, not to press charges, not to confront, just to ask for a conversation. It took 3 days before we got a reply. A handwritten note left at our door, folded in a plain white envelope, no name on the outside, just the word porch. Anna opened it slowly. Said, "If you want answers, I'll give them to you. Saturday morning, 10 a.m., Sycamore Trails Park, by the bench near the old oak. Come alone." Anna didn't hesitate. She showed up 10 minutes early, sat on the bench and waited. I stayed nearby, parked on the street within eyesight but far enough to respect her space. Karen arrived right on time. She looked different, smaller, her hair longer, her pantsuit gone, replaced by a simple cardigan and jeans. She walked like someone who had lost a war but still wanted to pretend she didn't mind. She sat beside Anna, not too close but not like enemies. They talked for over an hour. I couldn't hear a word from the car, but I could see the rhythm of it, the way Karen gestured slowly, the way Anna listened, arms crossed, then relaxed, then leaned in. When Anna finally came back to the car, she didn't say anything at first. We drove home in silence. She didn't speak until we pulled into the driveway. I think she really believed she was doing the right thing. Karen. Yeah, Anna said. She said after her husband died, she felt the neighborhood slipping. She said people stopped waving, stopped helping, started letting things go, and it scared her. So she invented an HOA. Not at first, Anna said. She said there used to be one, a real one, small, barely active. She tried to restart it, thought she was doing everyone a favor, but no one cared, so she made it matter by making it scary. And people just went along with it. Fear, Anna said, and routine. People don't question the clipboard if it keeps their world simple. I shook my head, and she let you sit with her and talk after everything. She said she respected me for not hiding, Anna said, and then her voice got quieter and she said she's sorry for what she did to me, to us. Do you believe her? I believe she believes it, Anna said. That night she didn't bring out the binder, she didn't pace the porch, she just sat beside me on the swing and watched the sky. Maybe now it's actually over, I said. She didn't answer. The next few weeks passed like chapters turning in a calm book. Frank started organizing block parties again, first one in years. Kids rode bikes with streamers, old couples brought out folding chairs, teenagers rolled their eyes but still showed up for brownies. Luis painted a mural on the side of the community rec building. It showed a tree in the center surrounded by homes, each one with a unique detail. Wind chimes, porch swings, a dog chasing a butterfly. It was beautiful and bold, and nobody asked for permission. Miss Linda brought out her wind chimes again and added a second set just because she could. Keisha helped start a new neighborhood newsletter, lighthearted stuff, recipes, birthdays, upcoming yard sales, nothing official, just real. And for the first time in years, people actually smiled when they saw each other. Anna attended her first meeting with the advisory board and came home more excited than I'd seen her in months. They listened, she said, they asked questions, they actually want change. She wasn't fighting anymore, she was building. And then came the news. The case against Karen was being moved forward. The county had enough to press charges formally. Trial would begin in the fall. Anna was listed as a key witness. She spent hours preparing, reviewing the binder again, but this time it wasn't to prove something, it was to protect something, the trust the street had built, the peace that now felt permanent. We drove to the courthouse on a cool morning, the leaves starting to turn early red and gold and brittle. Inside, Karen sat at the defendant's table wearing a plain navy sweater, no makeup, no clipboard. She didn't look at us. The prosecutor laid out the charges: impersonation, fraud, false claims, harassment, misuse of authority, threats of retaliation. Anna was called to the stand. She told the truth. Clear, calm, no exaggeration, just the facts. How Karen approached her, how she escalated, how she used fear and fake policies, how Anna discovered the truth, how neighbors came together, and how real it all became. The judge listened closely, the jury nodded often. Karen didn't testify. The verdict came quickly. Guilty on all but one count. She wasn't sentenced to prison, instead community service, probation, mandatory psychological evaluation, and restitution to the residents she fined illegally. Some people were disappointed. Anna wasn't. She said accountability isn't about revenge, it's about making things right. Karen moved out of the neighborhood a week later. No goodbye, no announcement, just a for sale sign and an empty house. The street didn't throw a party, nobody danced in her absence. It was quiet and soft, like when someone turns off a loud TV and you realize how nice the silence is. Months passed. Seasons changed. Anna planted sunflowers in the front yard that spring. Frank taught a couple of kids how to build birdhouses. Keisha ran for school board and won. Luis opened an art class at the rec center. And Miss Linda added Christmas lights to her wind chimes, because why not? Then one morning Anna came to me with a new binder, not the old one, a fresh one, blank tabs, clean covers. What's this? I asked. It's for the new group, she said. The county wants us to help pilot something they're calling Neighborhood Harmony Coalitions. It's voluntary advisory boards focused on fairness, community feedback, and transparency. No power, just support. You're doing it again, I said with a grin. She smiled, not fighting this time, leading. And what about the swing? I asked. Still mine, she said, and sat back down on it. And there it was again. Not the kind you hope for. The kind you build. Spring melted into summer like it always does in our part of town, slowly, warmly, like honey sliding down a spoon, and for the first time since we'd moved in, the season felt exactly how we pictured it, before all the drama, before the threats, before the lies. We were finally living in the neighborhood we dreamed about, the one we thought we had bought but didn't know we'd have to build. It didn't happen because someone handed us a checklist or rules or a packet full of what was allowed and what wasn't. It happened because Anna stood up, and then everyone else realized they could too. But now it wasn't about standing up anymore, it was about leaning in. Frank came over one morning with a box of old photos, black and white shots of the neighborhood back in the 60s and 70s, dirt roads, picket fences, kids with bowl cuts holding sparklers, and one photo of the original community garden that used to sit on the far end of Sycamore Lane. I haven't looked at these in years, Frank said, wiping dust from the top of the box. Figured it's time someone else took a look. Anna spent the rest of that day scanning them one by one, then printed copies and handed them out at the next gathering on Linda's lawn. It sparked something. Hey, someone said, I remember that old garden, we should bring it back. Someone else chimed in, what happened to the old picnic tables we used to have near the playground? Another said, maybe we could paint the benches that are peeling at the trailhead. It wasn't a list of complaints, it was a flood of ideas, like people had been waiting for permission to care again, and now they didn't need permission, they just needed a place to start. So they started. The next weekend half the neighborhood showed up with gloves, tools, paintbrushes, and lemonade in coolers. They didn't ask anyone for forms or approvals, they just went to work. The old community garden was cleaned up in a single afternoon, weeds pulled, dirt tilled, borders replaced. Anna bought seeds and trays from the local nursery and passed them out like candy. Plant something you'll eat or something you'll love, she said, just make sure it grows. Keisha took photos and turned them into a newsletter spread under the headline, Bloom Not Rules. Frank brought out a sign he had found in his attic, a carved wooden plaque that said Sycamore Grows Together, and they posted it near the entrance with fresh flowers underneath. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. Then something even more unexpected happened. People from outside our street started noticing. Someone from the next subdivision stopped by and asked how we organized it all. Anna smiled and said we just got out of the way. They started coming by more often, neighbors from a few blocks over, then even folks from different towns, some from communities still struggling with rigid HOAs or power-hungry board members wanting to learn how to fix it, how to start fresh. Anna never called herself a leader, but they did. They asked her to speak at workshops, at town forums, even a regional housing summit where she stood in front of 200 people and explained how a fake HOA helped build a real neighborhood. When she came home from that trip, she didn't say much, just sat down next to me on the swing and exhaled. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded slowly, but she looked far away. "It's just so much bigger than us," she said, "like way bigger. Because you told the truth," I said, "and you made it okay for other people to do it too." She didn't answer, but she smiled. Meanwhile, the neighborhood kept growing, not just plants but ideas. One evening we got a knock at the door and found a girl maybe 10 years old holding a shoebox filled with painted rocks, each one with a different word written on it: hope, love, patience, tacos. She handed Anna one that said shine. "We're starting a kindness walk," she said. "We hide them around the block, and if you find one, you keep it or move it or give it to someone sad." Anna teared up. She crouched and said, "Thank you, this is beautiful." The girl grinned and ran off barefoot. Later that week we found one under the porch swing. It said strong. But not everyone was ready to move on. Doug, who had once tried to sabotage our home during the blackout, didn't leave town. He stayed. He kept quiet for months, never came to events, never spoke much, but always waved politely when we passed. Then one night during a backyard movie night, he showed up carrying a fold-out chair and a bowl of popcorn. He didn't say much, but he sat near the back, watched the movie, and clapped at the end. The next day he left a note in our mailbox. "Thank you for not giving up on this place." That was it. No name, no apology, just honesty. Anna folded the note and placed it in her new binder. It wasn't labeled Karen or HOA or violations. This one was labeled community. She was building something again, but this time it wasn't just about fighting bad systems, it was about growing good ones. She called it the Porch Project. The idea was simple: every home has a porch or a step or a patch of lawn. It's a place between inside and outside, between private and public, and what if we used that space to build bridges? So she started small. A sign at the edge of our yard that said, "Welcome to the Porch Project. You're welcome to stop, say hi, share a story, or just rest." Some waved and kept walking, some stopped for a chat, some brought snacks or stories. Soon others joined. Porch signs popped up down the street. One said, "Come sit a while," another said, "Need a laugh, I've got dad jokes." It wasn't about solving the world, it was about connecting with the 10 feet in front of you. And it worked. People who had never spoken were now laughing across hedges, borrowing sugar, watching each other's kids for a minute while someone ran to the store. It was small. It was enough. Then one day the county office called again. They wanted to turn the neighborhood harmony pilot into a permanent program, and they wanted Anna to help write the playbook. She spent hours meeting with people from all over, people burned by HOA battles or lost in bureaucratic mazes, trying to figure out how to protect their homes without giving up their peace. She came home tired every night but alive. "I've never felt so useful," she said, and I knew she meant it. I watched her transform from someone who just wanted to sit on a swing to someone who helped build a whole porch for everyone else. Then came the invitation that changed everything again. The state assembly was holding a special hearing on housing policy, and they invited Anna to testify. We both stared at the email for a long time. "That's a big deal," I said. She nodded, slow, steady, serious. "You think I should do it?" "I think you already did it. Now you just have to tell them how." She spoke in front of the committee in the same calm voice she used on the porch the day Karen first showed up. No drama, no grandstanding, just the story, the truth, the solution. She told them how fear grew when people didn't know their rights, how power filled in the silence, and how communities didn't need control, they needed connection. When she finished, the room stood, not just clapped but stood. A few weeks later they passed a bill to increase transparency and accountability in all residential associations across the state. It had a name: the Taylor Resolution. Anna didn't cry, but she held the paper for a long time and whispered, "It wasn't supposed to be us. But it was." And somehow that made it better. The summer after the Taylor Resolution passed, everything in our neighborhood changed again, but this time it wasn't about chaos or fear or clipboards, it was about choice and pride, and something we hadn't truly felt since we first moved in. It was about peace. Real peace. Not the quiet kind that comes from people being too afraid to speak, but the kind that settles in your bones because everyone around you finally feels safe. The porch swing creaked under us the same way it always had, but the sound meant something new now. It used to be a small rebellion against noise, now it was a rhythm of the life we had built. Anna spent more time outside now, not because she was watching or waiting, but because people kept stopping by. Neighbors, strangers, people from 2 towns over who'd read her interview in the newsletter or heard about her work with the county. One woman brought a fresh pie and just cried when she met Anna, said she felt like someone finally saw her. Said her HOA threatened to evict her for planting lavender instead of tulips. Another came with a dog and a folder. Wanted to start a porch project on her own block. Asked if she could use the same phrase. Anna smiled and said it's not mine to own, it's ours to share. We had no idea how far it had spread. Then one night Keisha texted a link to a new article. Headline read, "The Woman Who Made Porches Political." The article was long, detailed, kind. It told the story from start to finish. But what hit the hardest wasn't the words. It was the comments. Hundreds of them. All people sharing their own porch stories. Photos of painted steps and kindness rocks and lawn chairs placed on sidewalks for strangers. And every few comments someone would write the same thing. "We don't need rules, we need neighbors." Anna printed out the article, framed it, hung it inside the front door. Not because she wanted to brag, but because it reminded her of something she almost forgot. It wasn't just about stopping Karen. It was about starting something better. We hadn't heard from Karen in months. After the verdict, she disappeared from the public eye. Sold her house. No forwarding address. No final word. Until a single letter showed up one cloudy morning in early autumn. No return address. Just our names written in a shaky hand. Anna opened it slowly like she already knew who it was from. Inside was a short note and a folded page of old minutes from the original HOA dated 12 years ago. The note said, "I didn't know how to fix it, but you did. Thank you." Anna stared at it a long time. Then folded it up and placed it in the binder labeled Community. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just nodded and said, "Even broken people can build something if someone helps them see how." After that, something shifted again. Not in the street. Not in the county. In her. She started writing again. Not just emails or proposals. She started a book. She didn't tell many people. But I watched her fill notebook after notebook. Page after page of stories. Lessons. Truth. She said it wasn't about publishing. It was about remembering. I told her people would want to read it someday. Maybe, she said, but even if it's just for me, I need to get it out. Fall turned to winter. The porch swing creaked a little slower. Blankets came out. Cups of cider replaced lemonade. But the conversations never stopped. People still came by. Still shared. Still leaned in. The community garden kept growing even in the colder months. Someone planted winter kale and rosemary. Miss Linda built a tiny greenhouse with help from Frank and Luis. They called it the Hope House. It was all starting to feel like home. Not just our home. Everyone's. Then the invitation came. A university was hosting a summit on civic innovation. They wanted Anna to keynote the event. All expenses paid. A 20-minute talk about how neighborhoods can change the world. She laughed at first. Me, a keynote speaker. What would I even wear? But then she looked out at the porch swing. At the chalk drawing some kid had left near the sidewalk. At the painted rock still sitting near the hydrangea bush. Said, "Still growing." And she said, "Okay, I'll do it." I sat in the front row when she took the stage. She didn't wear anything fancy. Just jeans and a soft blue sweater. The same calm voice. The same steady eyes. She told them the truth. Not just about Karen or the fake HOA or the court case. But about the first time she realized power doesn't have to be taken, it can be given. And when it is, it multiplies. She told them about porches. About the 10 feet of space between your house and the sidewalk. About how that little space could heal or harm depending on how you use it. She ended her speech by saying, "You don't need a badge to change the world. You just need to sit still long enough to hear what it needs." The room stood up again. Not out of obligation. Out of awe. When we got home, the porch was waiting for us. So were 5 new notes stuck in the cracks of the swing. Each one handwritten. Each one anonymous. One said, "You reminded me how to talk to my mom again." One said, "My street just started its own porch project." One said, "Thank you for proving that kind people can win." Anna tucked them into the binder. We still sit on the swing. Most evenings. Sometimes just us. Sometimes with half the block. Sometimes there are words. Sometimes just silence. But it's never empty. Because people come. They come when they need to rest. They come when they need to talk. They come when they don't know what they need, but they know they're not alone. And maybe that's the whole story. Karen thought control made a neighborhood work. But Anna showed us it was connection. Karen used fear to keep people quiet. Anna used truth to help people speak. Karen brought a clipboard. Anna brought a chair. And the swing. The swing never stops. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and hit subscribe. We've got more drama, more twists, and more real talk coming soon. See you in the next one.